Good afternoon. So, I'm going to try something different here. I'm going to try and keep it a short format video. I normally don't do the short format, but I'm literally waiting on paint to dry. I am painting the side of the vending machine to make it stand out. I'm having some issues. There are a couple of areas where the paint's not adhering as well as I would have hoped, but that's just, even though I cleaned it, I sanded it, there's still, I'm not a painter. We'll call it that. That said, I've got a few things. I did the vending machine recently. This is the sign on the outside, the new lighting. Things look like they're holding up pretty well in here. Just trying to convert it and make it something a little more fancy than it was. But I'm going to do a video here on the anatomy of a car wash. I'm waiting on someone to stop spraying so the pump will turn off, because it occurred to me that I go over things in depth a lot, but I don't know that I, at least since things are fully open, have done these are the basics of a wash, these are the basic components of a wash, and how does it all work? So I thought that would be interesting. Now, I didn't expect to do this today. Looks like someone either threw something at the fence or a bird had a really bad day. Sorry, I didn't expect to do this today, so I don't have my gimbal or my microphone with me, so audio in the video may not be the greatest. I also look like hell, but let's give it a go and see what happens. All right, we've all been in here, or we've all not been here, but we've seen in here before, the pump room. So I'm gonna zoom out for a second here to kind of give a little better view. So the basics of my wash. Now, my wash is set up very simple, very old school, which for those who know me in real life might be a bit of a surprise because I like technology. But when it comes to stuff like this, I just need it to work. And when things don't work, it gets on my damn nerves. So, we've all been seeing videos in the pump room here. So I guess we'll start at the front. We have a bill exchanger. This is the backside of a Hamilton RNS. I've got it unlocked for the video here, but really easy. Now, I actually have a camera inside I use for remote monitoring of my coin levels because the system to do that is very expensive. Essentially, you've got a bill stacker in there. You see the green light reflecting off the side. This is the computer that controls everything. And then there's the hopper of quarters that I have in here. I have the bigger hopper that holds, I think it's close to like $1,000, and it's like 800 when it's all said and done. But I don't keep that much in there at any given time. This is where the backside of Bay 5 is right here. This is the coin box. There's where the control box, there's the coin box. Just some random plumbing, a lot of things that have been cut off, but I've left up there because they make it good to hold bundles of cables. Now the main, pardon me for circling here, but we'll start back in the back now. So the main water feed for my wash comes in right down here behind that diesel container, the air compressor. It runs everything and it splits, and I've got two feeds. I have one that goes off to the left, which the lower feed I only use to feed the hot water heater and a couple of, like, my sink is spliced off of it, but nothing, it's back up. There's a lot of water there. I think it's a 2-inch. It's a 1.5 or a 2-inch. So there's a lot of water available if I need it, but I don't tap into that one really. I do run a fairly low usage for the amount of business I do. I'll get to that in a minute. But then the water comes over and it goes up and it goes over this pipe here, which has a few places where in the past there was a big water softener, reverse osmosis. I'm not actually running any softening here because my TDS is low enough on the water I haven't had to, which fine by me. But another camera up there I use to monitor. That's part of the big DVR system, so I can actually turn on lights and check on things and see what's going on in here. This is the spare inventory of some parts. I keep things like vacuum bags and spare equipment parts down here, and a lot of my vending inventory, like things like microfiber mitts, will do that when the vacuum broke, or like the towels that I do in like a hard pack vacuum format. And pet cleaning tools and air fresheners. It's kind of a little random mishmash of stuff up here. This is all construction stuff. The sink that I put in, my tooling, my electronic area where I've got, backup power, DVR, label printer I use for a lot of things, little safe that I use just to keep crap in. It's a Harbor Freight safe. It's not going to protect anything other than like if I've got money laying in here and I'm walking in and out, I put it in there and lock the door just to keep people from walking by. Tools, workbench, etc. Water that comes down feeding the hose. There's a lot of extra plumbing down here that is not used from where there was once a reclaim system in here. Again, not doing it. I keep it simple. Don't need to. So the water feed, the top comes around, and then we get to the business side of things. This is a mess. So what you'll see up here is what I'm doing. I'm converting and putting all the hoses vertically on the walls, but I had been so busy business-wise, I haven't been able to do that because I need to shut bays down to be able to pull hoses apart. So it looks like a spaghetti mess. It's working right now. A little harder to troubleshoot, but it's going to be fixed in the next couple weeks because I need to plumb the air weep system back in. So this is all the business end. You see these white tubes coming down like right here into these things. I'll go over those in a minute. And then it comes over here and it terminates and it comes down into this clear hose, which is going away, and this other doohickey. I'll explain that in a few. This is just backup water. I'll get to that when I get to the tank. So we have our low pressure units here. These were made by AirLogic. The company no longer exists. Clean Right, who's my supplier, bought them and is now making them in-house. They get the job done. I like them. They're very expensive. Close to $2,000 each for my setup here. And the middle one has been my problem child parts-wise. It also came in bent. So, But what we have down here are my chemicals, which come in a 5-gallon concentrate. So I mix one of these with 2 more of those. So each one makes a total of 15 gallons. That goes into these barrels, which are 35 gallons. I actually have an apparatus on a hose that measures water, so I don't need to worry about putting it in buckets anymore. But that gets drawn up through a draw tube into a tank. This is our pre-soak. And if you look down in there, you'll see that there is chemical waiting. So, customer in the bay wants pre-soak. They come in, they put their money in, they turn the knob. A signal comes into one of the electrical boxes back here, depending on what bay. There are actually 3 of them. Bay 1 is completely independent of 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Somewhat by design, it is my backup that will keep things running should something happen. I can run Bay 1 by itself, and also a couple things feed off of that. I may have to pause this. We have a customer here in a minute, but at any rate, we have 3 low pressure panels. We have free soak, we have wheel and tire, and we have foam brush. Now, when you turn your knob, all these work the same. The signal comes down to this electrical connector here, opens up a solenoid. There's air feeding in right here, water coming in from the top for the mix. This thing is called a flow jet. It's an air-operated pump. So air comes into the flow jet. You'll hear them hissing, clicking, and it sucks the chemical up through here and feeds it up into this manifold. At the same time, this is like bay, I think the bottom was bay 5. Yeah. So for instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what happens is these both open at the same time, and you've got air coming through this line. You've got chemical coming through this line, and they go up to one of these things right here, and they combine. And this is where the magic happens. This is a foam generator. I have stuffed those with material that helps it generate foam. It's like a sponge material. I made my own rather than buy the expensive ones. And then it goes out the yellow hose, and it goes to the bay and comes out whatever nozzle. That's the low pressure setup. There are these 3 additional tanks. They're all the same size. They're physically about the same size, but they're all same concept, only they have no electrical. They just have these things on the top called a hydrominder. All 6 of these have hydrominders. They work just like your toilet fill valve to essentially fill. However, the difference being is there's this added part right here, and there's a tip in here that you can change the size of based on the color, And that determines your mix, your dilution ratio. So essentially, when this thing is running water in here, it's coming in, city water coming in here, and then it sucks the soap, it blends it, and it makes the soap, which in this case being the wheel and tire cleaner. I'm gonna go ahead and pause here. Actually, no, I'm not. It's not too loud. I'm gonna continue and we'll see how the audio goes. So these three work a little differently in that these are the high pressure feed. So we have our high pressure soap, we have our high pressure wax, and we have desalt. It's a salt neutralizer. Those draw out through these pipes in the bottom. And they go to these manifold blocks over here, which are a bit of a mess. There we are. But they work on the same concept as the manifold blocks that are here. They get an electrical signal, they open a valve. The difference being, these gravity feed, that's why those pipes are not necessarily straight as well. There is a little bit of a, you're not getting anything much, but they're a different length, but essentially they gravity feed into these tubes that come out of the bottom of each one, and they run down to these mixing situations that I've created here. And then that runs through this clear tube to one side of the pump head. So when you're in the wash and you select high pressure soap, same thing. Let's say you're in bay 1. The solenoid for over here, for bay 1, will open. The pump will turn on. Oh, here's actually a hydro minder working right now. I heard one of them go, oh, it's that one. It just clicked off. Any rate, it draws down and it gets sucked into the pump, which in this case, for instance, bay 4, I can tell by the color that they're using soap right now, high pressure soap. This is a pump running. This is a fairly healthy, although the gauge is dead, a fairly healthy Cat 310. It's a little loud, but it works. And the belt chatters a little bit, but essentially it pulls the soap in through over here, through the tube. You've got water coming in from a holding tank here. It is all pulled together, mixed, and sent out through this contraption. Now this is where we adjust the pressure in the bay, and this also prevents the hose from exploding when you let the trigger off in the bay. There's a spring in here that lets water run through this bypass loop as much as needed. This is what goes out to the bay and uses your high pressure spray gun. So those run out here, run up into the ceiling. This is summertime. In the wintertime, I actually, and most of them are doing this right now, but I kind of simplified. They actually run in from the pump to this contraption here, which has a check valve, and then it's got hoses coming in from the bottom, which is the pump feed. These are where I can inject the weep water. I'll explain weep in a minute, or I can also inject once we finally do spot free. This is where spot free will come out of the nozzle. This is also the service air. You'll notice air running to these. Again, this is what serves the pumps. All right. So goes out to the black hose, goes out to the bay. There we go. All right. What we have right now is this person's using foam brush. And that, oh, and you get to see it mixing a little bit right there. You'll see it click off here in a second. It only keeps about 1.5 gallons to 2 gallons live at any given time. So, water. I've shown you a little bit, but water coming into the pump. We got it coming in from 2 ways. Yes, this is a trash can. They make expensive tanks. I have found that this actually works better, and if something were to happen, I can deal with it. So I can kill that, move that. So what we have, our water feed coming in. Remember I showed you back here. Goes to a tankless hot water heater. I have propane here. We don't have natural gas in the area. We are coastal and they just don't have it here. So water coming up, cold water, gas coming in, water heater does its thing, water comes out through this pipe into the tank, which has what looks exactly like a toilet valve in your toilet tank, a float valve up here. and it keeps it full of hot water. I keep my water at 110 for customers. And then on the back side of it, this thing coming out, going down to this valve manifold, and then each one of these hoses feeds a pump. You'll notice that the valves are not open all the way. The reason they're not open all the way is by not opening them all the way and making the pump work to pull the water a little harder, I actually make the soap changeover a little faster, because the soap just tends to get sucked through an easy thing. That's cycling off again. So that's the anatomy of the pump side of the car wash. You've got your high pressure and low pressure. Oh, what I mentioned earlier. This hose coming in here, there's another float valve down low. This is backup water. It shouldn't come on. This is also getting hard plumbed soon because I don't like how that hose is swelling, even though it's rated for the pressure we have here. Essentially, if we get really busy and I'm having flow issues on hot water because the hot water heater has to slow down a little bit to be able to heat to the 110. This is a backup, which basically means, yeah, your water might get cold in the bays or cooler, but I'm never going to starve the pumps. I'm not going to run the pumps dry. It's a safety. It doesn't get used. Unless I'm really busy, it'll kick on once in a while here, barking on and off, but only just, it's adding a little bit. It's barely causing customer impact. So, now, I mentioned winter earlier. Car wash enemy. We've got the weep system here. This is all driven. If you look up here, there's a second pipe coming off. Not the one with the clear hose, but the one that comes down zigzags, and you've got this solenoid valve right here. That is attached. By the way, all the wiring that you're seeing here is low voltage, and anyway, it's just screwing about. Hold on, we got a pump coming up. Which one? Oh, Bay 4 again. So, on the wall back here, hidden up, this computer is called a weep miser. That yellow cord is actually a temperature probe that goes out the back wall. The weep miser monitors the temperature, and when we get down below a certain threshold, I believe for me it's 39, I've got it set to 38. It will start cycling water through it. It flips this valve on. Actually, it turns the valve off to let water flow, which flows down through these black hoses over through here, and independent of everything else, a little bit of water leaks out of the guns in the bay. It's sending water down the drain, but it keeps things from freezing, and that's more important. Now, to help keep things here from freezing up, because this solution will freeze up, come winter, I start mixing methanol. I buy a 55-gallon drum of methanol, and I mix methanol into the premix to raise the freezing temperature of the solution. But it still can sit in the lines and cause problems. So last year, I came up with this contraption. It's a solenoid. I've got to unplug right now because it's noisy. Going to another manifold. And what this does is I have hoses that I put in, and I run from here up into these manifolds. I add an extra T in there. And at the same time, water is being pulsed through the lines. This is hooked up to the shop air, and it blows air through the lines into the bays, clearing out the foam brush, the wheel and tire, and the pre-soak. It sounds like a bus or a semi that's letting its brakes off whenever it happens, but it worked pretty well last year to keep things clear. So I'm going to straighten all of this up, and then I'm going to replumb the weep in. That's kind of my driving factor for getting all this going. So that's kind of, it's really very simple, the solution I have here. My pumps, I'll go over here away from this one, it's making noise. My pump setup is fairly simple. I'm running a belt drive to a 5-horse 3-phase motor. Just a standard belt drive. And the white is actually a marker for a tachometer because these need to run at 1,725 RPMs for optimal efficiency. And if I start getting belt slippage, but I can measure the speed the pump's actually turning at to make sure things are working here. It requires some calculations because of the size of the pulley difference. But anyway, got the motor back there. I got the cover off this one because I was working on it the other day. But again, everything is dry here coming into the pump. Cat 310 pump. You've got water coming in. This is a pump head. There are valves inside of here that are replaceable wear items, and the whole head has to come off, and there are other seals you have to replace as well in there occasionally. You've got to change the oil in these things like a car, and keep them lubricated, but they're pretty bulletproof. All of this is the apparatus that supports the floor heat in the bays, which I don't have because there is a leak in the hydronic system out there. So currently not using that. I don't know if I'll ever use that in this location or not. I thought it'd be interesting to give a little more technical tour, but maybe not as in-depth, just kind of saying how all this stuff works. Because a lot of people come to these channels looking, and I know when I was first looking at starting this, I have a very high technical aptitude, and I'm an engineer with a very technical background, hands-on. So for me, it was very easy to understand, but a lot of people can't conceptualize. And if you're looking at getting into this business, there's so many videos that show you the glorified, oh, this is the money count, and this is, all that, and not really what all goes into it. You'll notice that spot free is absent. I'm going to be adding it eventually. It's got to make the money to do so. I let the wash pay for itself with things like that. The air dryers in the bays, those too. Everything will be wired back in here, but it all, and I'll cover the install when I do that. That's going to take some time, but I'm getting closer to buying one of them, J.E. Adams. I'm thinking of going with the Turbo Towel heated dryer. Probably in Bay 2, only because Bay 2 is my most popular. See what happens with it. That said, I'm trying not to make this a long video. Thank you for watching. Talk to you later.